Thanks for tuning into the Dirty Knowledge Podcast with your hosts Jericho and Jose. This podcast is strictly based off of personal experiences and opinions. We hope you enjoy. Please like, subscribe, and share for more content like this.
Yeah. Like, one of us saying this is our podcast.
So say welcome back to the podcast.
Oh yeah, just welcome back to the podcast. So you want to say it after I say it, or you want me to say it right after?
Yeah, no, just say yeah. Say
So,
no, I'm gonna say welcome back to the podcast, and then we're gonna go with the
Okay.
we're gonna go into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's going on, guys? It's Jericho here with Humpty Dumpsters.
And Jose with GMP Property Services.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. First off, thank you again for tuning in. If you have clicked on this video and joined our podcast, we do have a couple of things that we want to talk about. I know we expressed it a little bit on the last episode, but here we are on the second one. So this is episode number 2. First off, we're going to introduce ourselves. Again, my name is Jericho. I'm with Humpty Dumpsters LLC. If you guys don't know, I'm sure you guys do already. However, one thing we want to talk about is how did we get to this point. So me personally, I was working at Discount Tire full-time for about 5 years or so. I had my own house. I was a almost store manager at Discount Tire, and time went on, and obviously I was doing my dumpster business as a side hustle, where obviously I got too busy doing that, so I ended up having to quit and go full-time in the business. To kind of give you guys a backstory on how I actually started the business, how did I get the money for the business, the whole nine like that. Being that I was at Discount Tire, that was my main income. Obviously, I'm married, so me and my wife, we bought a house. We had just turned 20, and we lived in there for about 2 years before we could sell it, where we went to pay taxes and all that. So we stayed there for about 2 years. After that, we sold the house. We knew we had to sacrifice to obviously change our life to where we wouldn't be working the same 9-to-5 jobs, right? So we sold the house. We bought a fifth wheel trailer, and we used some of that money to obviously help start the business, pay for the little things that go into the business, i.e., like websites, marketing, what else? Just, your logos, your branding, things like that, like hats and clothes and stuff. And after I did that, or after we did that, we sold the house and we started doing the business. Obviously, it kind of gave us a little safety net to focus a little more on the business with demoting ourselves from a full-time job. So I demoted myself from my full-time job, went part-time, and it allowed me to work more in the business of Humpty Dumpsters. And eventually, I would say after about 6 months, maybe a year, I quit Discount. I think it's like 6 months or so. Can't remember, honestly. But I quit Discount Tire, went full-fledged into Humpty Dumpsters, and here I am. This is where we're at. A couple months later, after that, or basically about a year after that, now we have to do the podcast. I'm full-time into it, and there's obviously a lot more room to grow. So that's how I got here. What about you, Andy?
Me, so first off, I started off from the moment I was born, basically, till we were 17. I lived on a ranch. Shout out to Hunting Ranch. If any of you guys are watching, thank you. I appreciate y'all for what y'all taught me. But yeah, I grew up there. My parents worked on the ranch. Then eventually I was 15, 16, 17. I started doing small little chores here and there, helping out my dad and stuff like that. Then it wasn't until the last year that I was there where I actually met Jericho. And we were just two kids with the four-wheeler and a dream, as we call it, just driving around that ranch, having the time of our lives. And that's actually where I learned and I got the passion for the green industry. I used to hop on the zero turns, mow, tractors, shredders, all that stuff, mowing acres of land on end, and just having that satisfaction of you see a field and it's really tall and then everything is mowed, the horses go out, they enjoy your clippings and
Everything's
stuff like
really
that.
nice. Yeah.
Everything is nice. Now, don't get me wrong, on the ranch there isn't a lot of stuff that we have to watch out for, like, as a residential or a commercial property, like, we do nowadays.
Sprinklers.
And stuff like that, yeah. And so
Small
there
things.
was a lot of stuff that we could get away with and that I potentially couldn't get away with here. But yeah, that was basically from, again, when I was born to about 2017, 2018 was when I graduated high school. 2017, when Hurricane Harvey happened, right before my graduation, we had a major flood happen, and so that
was a crazy time.
Yeah, that was
Crazy
a crazy time. During that hurricane, basically we had lost quite a good amount of stuff that we had in the house and stuff, and then one thing led to another. We ended up parting ways with the Hudson family and that same ranch, and then from there, that's what initiated me to start my own business. I was a senior in high school. I didn't really have anything going forward. My dad was jumping from job to job, and stuff, and so I wanted to be able to create that stability for my family. Nevertheless, create something from my father and stuff like that, so that we can be able to work on together and seeing him, and stuff. And so what I did was that's where I started, cutting lawns. I did not start with GMP at first. I did not get incorporated until 2021. Leading up to that point, from the moment I graduated till 2021, I was doing a whole lot of work here within the Houston area, with being subcontracted out by a different company up in Dallas. And so thankfully to them, Mr. Don, he took me under his wing, and he allowed me to grow with the business. So the moment I graduated, I got a call. I had a Facebook ad out there, got a call, and they said, hey, are you willing to take over the Houston area for the amount of work that we have? And I said, sure. Nevertheless, we kept growing. They trusted an 18-year-old with a little trailer, a little lawnmower, push mower,
They know that you're 18?
They did not, because I
That's
did not
crazy.
tell them my age when I first started. It wasn't until about 2-3 days later where it just got to it that they found out how old I was.
Right. It's crazy how you say that. Like,
Yeah.
it was just one phone call, and that led you to be where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
Yeah,
that
literally.
one phone call.
It
now
was
you're here.
crazy. And so also Miss Veronica, I can't forget about her. She did some amazing stuff to pull those strings to be able to get me on. So yeah, they gave me the opportunity, and come 2021, again, I created the LLC and stuff. And so that's when I decided to go full-fledged into the business and say, hey, this is my all. Still confused on a few things of, kind of routes. Obviously, as we're still young, routes that I want to take, there's so many different routes being in the green industry, whether you stay commercial, strictly in maintenance, or you go into the landscape, hardscaping, concrete type of commercial and stuff like that. And so yeah, or building even outdoor like landscapes and stuff, pools. It's a whole variety of things that you can get into with this industry. But nevertheless, fast forward 2021, 2022, 2023, I still have the contract up that we have with them, and I have a lot of customers and jobs that I have been doing here over the past months and stuff, including with Jericho. We do work together here and there, and get a few jobs that we have lined up. We take care of them and stuff like that, again along the lines of landscaping. We're learning on a day-to-day basis, and stuff. And so leading to present day, a few months ago we were talking about getting everything with the podcast ready, and here we are. And it's been a wild ride, I'll tell you that much, ever since we started. But
it's just hard because, like, with the rain and the weather, and then it's really hard to kind of get everything on track on the same time, which is the reason why we're able to do this today, because it's raining. So I'm not working today. I know I had a couple people call me today, but I already had plans, obviously with this today to do. So we need a little bit of rain to kind of help us out.
Yeah. I mean,
bring us
definitely,
back-
even in my
bring us
industry,
back
yeah, for
to
sure.
Other things.
And nevertheless too, it allows you to get a break on the equipment, get a break on yourself, focus on stuff behind the scenes, which is a lot
Maintenance.
exactly. It's a
Things
lot
like
of
that.
stuff that I learned, that when you're building a skyscraper, you can't forget about the foundation. And even if the foundation itself takes longer to create than the actual skyscraper, you need to build that foundation, because if you do not, it is crazy. Learn what you got to learn. And yes, sometimes in my case, I had to jump in it. We didn't have no income coming in. Like I mentioned, my dad was jumping in and out of jobs. But when you're going at it and you're hustling it through, you have to reach it. You have to reach that goal that you're setting yourself up onto. And even if you do have a job, like you mentioned, you eventually go from a full-time position to a part-time position. That's a huge pay cut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
I definitely jumped.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, and I told Andy, his name's Jose, but I've always known him as Andy. So when you guys hear me refer to him as Andy, it's
we'll get that out the way. That's how he met me on the range.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
get that
so we'll
sorted
get
out.
that way. That way, in case you guys hear, we'll get.
It's
that
crazy
sorted.
those jobs that we go to, and I'm like, "This is Andy," and he introduces himself to them. He's like, "Hi, I'm Jose."
Oh, that's so funny.
Anyway,
And then
sorry.
too, that also helps me out, because I will be honest. How many landscapers are out there that are named Jose? Just being honest.
Everybody.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's good
Or one.
to exactly. It's good to switch. It's good to have like and stuff. And so Andy came from Andreas. My name is Jose Andreas, and so that's a lot of people in high school, they couldn't say that, or nevertheless in like elementary.
Right.
Basically that's where it came from. Once I got to high school, that's when everybody started calling me Jose XYZ, and so that's what kind of stuck. But meeting him and stuff on the ranch, that's how everybody knew me as. And to
Andy.
this day, everybody knows me. So yeah, just
like the Toy Story guy.
yeah, just clearing that out. I got it written on my book.
No, anyway, I was saying a second ago, though, no, you're right. When I went from a part-time job steady steady paycheck or steady income to go into the full-time dumpsters. It was definitely scary, but I prayed about it. For the ones who know me, I'm very religious. I'm very Christian oriented, or at least try to be, right? But I stepped in, or out of faith, right? And that kind of got me to where I'm at now. One thing that I've kind of lived by or learned now is you'll never know unless you try. And that kind of also falls back to believing in faith. And I had a lot of faith. I knew God wasn't going to let me down, and he hasn't till this day. I know he never will. So, kind of going from there, I guess we'll go to our next topic. I know we kind of want to talk about, or some people had asked us, what kind of equipment did you guys start with? So I'll let you start with that. Andy, what kind of equipment did you start with when you started your business?
Well, as hard as it is to believe, like the typical story that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have, when we made the switch from leaving the ranch that we used to be on, I didn't have that much money. I had $1,000 in my bank account. So the first thing I went to was a self-propelled Craftsman push mower from Lowe's.
Hey, don't knock on the Craftsmans though.
It was a front-wheel drive. All the time, I was purposely trying to look for a mower that had a bigger tire in the back and then a smaller tire in the front. Didn't find one, so I got one that had all four the same size, but it was self-propelled in the front only. So I was like, man, you know what? Let's take it. It was a cheaper mower that I could find. At that same point, I knew I needed a weed eater. And so I went to Home Depot for that. Got myself the little, the Echoes, small basic one that we, residential one that you can get. Straight shaft.
Okay.
And so I actually already had a blower. Well, I go to my first property and my blower decides to go out. And it was a very, very old Craftsman blower as well. I had to hold the spark plug in so that I could finish blowing the property. And I could probably blow more with my mouth than I could with the blower. But eventually, again, we got through it. It took me a little bit of time, got through a few lawns, and stuff like that. First $150 that I had, went to Home Depot again, and I bought myself a brand new Echo handheld blower.
You still have that one, I think.
Yeah, I have a few of those. We actually still run those to this day. So, nevertheless, again, started with that. That was probably 2018. Boom, 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 kept going forward. And it wasn't about 2019 when I had already been working for about 6 months in summer of 2018 to about December was when I made a jump. And I decided to go and get some more equipment. So what happened there was, I have to backtrack. It was in October where I went on Craigslist and I found the guy that had a full setup. It was a 10-foot trailer. It had a walk-behind mower, the belt-driven walk-behind mower. It had a weed eater, an edger, backpack blower, and all commercial-grade equipment, right? And so I was like, oh, man, that's insane. Boom. I literally, that's exactly what I needed, $4,000 for everything. And I said, yep. Dang. I didn't have $4,000. I probably had $1,000 something. So my dad helped me out. He was like, hey, you know what? He was like, I'm actually going to pay for half, but because again, we were both needing the work at that time. And so my dad, with his savings and stuff, and with whatever $1,000 that I had saved up, I said, you know what? Let's take the $2,000, and I had a 16-foot trailer that I had bought way back when I was on the ranch. I was very, very young. My dad had just got it. So I said, hey, wrote up a little contract when I was in class. I'm still on my senior year, and at that day, when the time came, I had, taken that same contract and I used it as a collateral, basically. And I said, hey, here is my 16-foot trailer for the $2,000 that I would owe you for the setup. Here's $2,000 cash. He signed it. I signed it. Took pictures of everything. Boom. That was the first time I ever made a deal in my life. Got that. I took that and I started working. And boom, boom, boom. I to an extent, like,
until you paid off
until I paid it off.
Well, I guess you already had the equipment, right?
Yeah, I was able to take the equipment home and stuff. And so, again, my 16-foot trailer, though, I dropped off that trailer and the 2,000, right? So in case he felt like I wasn't going to pay him back, he
already has a trailer.
Exactly, he would have had a trailer, which was about the same equal value at that point. It was a double axle trailer. I mean, brakes, the whole nine. And so to him, it was a good deal. Anyways, after I did that, we went forward. I started getting more jobs, and eventually, boom, I paid it off. I signed on $500 a month, and we did that, and that was basically what kickstarted me. Then further on, 2019, I got a stand-on. It was very hard for me to get approved by anybody. The typical Sheffield Financial. Appreciate y'all for finally approving me. But
If
yeah,
you're watching,
if you're watching,
I could use some more.
but yeah, I finally got approved, by them, and I was able to get my hands on, on a mower, on a stand-on, and that's what took off. I had my first Right Standard 32-inch stand-on. I felt like I was on top of the world. We went from doing probably 13 to 15, maybe some days of 18 lawns, to immediately 20, 25 lawns in a day. And you talk about the return on revenue for that. I mean, it was insane, and stuff. So yeah, a lot easier for me, a lot easier for my guys. Then eventually, collected a little bit of cash, and then Facebook Marketplace became my best friend.
Right.
That's where I got my second standard, like about, I don't even want to say, maybe not even 2 months after my first one.
Yeah.
I got my second stand-on mower from Facebook Marketplace. Random person in Houston, boom, went, met up with another landscape company. They wanted cash, took it, boom, got home, did all my maintenance on it, and then before you know it, I had 2 stand-ons. Well, ever since I was little, I always had a thing for trailers, and that was my thing. I was always sell, and you knew that. Sometimes you'll show up to my house, and dude, I'd have like 9 trailers here, and you're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
For real, yeah.
And so, luckily with that, I was able to create another crew. Boom. I at that point I had my own truck. My dad still had his truck. And so we were able to, hook up both F-150s, made 2 crews, and that's how I started. Then eventually it kept on growing, and it leads me to where, I am now. Full stand-on commandons. Skag sponsor me, please. X-Mark sponsor me, please. But yeah, that's what all the influencers say. But that's what started off for me. And now, that's what I run. I run Skags, X-Marks, Echo, and I really like the steel blowers. So I don't know. Let us know in the comments. What kind of equipment did you guys start off with? What about you? What did it look like for you?
So when I started, actually, I went to a few different places to figure out what exactly I wanted. I looked up some YouTube videos, and I came across a few channels that were doing roll-off rentals and stuff like that. And when I went to the dealerships, it was either Texas Pride, or you had Lone Star, or like the industrial rails,
Versus standard,
versus standard. And so moving into all that, I started knowing what was standard and then what was the industrial rails and all that. And I didn't really understand it like completely. And now, looking back, I'm like, dang, whatever. However, I went to Texas Pride, and I went to Nationwide. And one thing I didn't like about the Texas Pride were the dumpsters. I feel like the dumpsters were like really cheaply made as far as like the walls. I feel like they were very like flexible and everything. And that's honestly like, that was the reason why I didn't go to Texas Pride, because I went to look at them and I'm like, these feel cheap. And if I'm going to have people loading these things up with this and that and the other, they're going to get messed up really quick. And so I went to look at Nationwide, and they had a Lone Star setup with the 3 bins, and when I went there, immediately noticed the difference as far as the dumpsters. I personally felt like the dumpsters with Nationwide or Lone Star were better built as far as like thickness wise. Now obviously, now that I've ran the system over and over and over, now I can see the flaws in the Lone Star setup, which obviously there's
everybody has their flaws, but
Pride,
you're talking mainly, and no offense to Texas Pride at all, right? Because again, he never fully went and tested it out.
Yeah, never.
But a view upon initial, like just viewing, going
to dealership and like literally like pressing on the walls, and stuff like that.
View, that's where you felt what you.
And then the double doors.
Correct.
The double doors. Now that I know about the double doors, because I have one container to double door, I hate it. So I'm kind of glad, I wouldn't say I'm glad I didn't go Texas Pride, but like. In a way,
it has
pros and
reasons,
cons.
because going forward, which further on, what he's going to explain, he would explain why now, as far as Texas Pride, might be a decision.
Yeah.
But that also goes to the fact of being naive and not knowing between industrial and standard rail, correct?
Correct. I knew a little bit, but I didn't know a whole lot about it, and I just kind of went, with the flow, and then figured, hey, this was probably my best deal, so I went that route. But
so after you saw the Lone Stars, what, and you saw that, hey, they were a little better built, stuff like that. What made you make that final jump? Was it like the trailer, or just everything how it was in general, or what the the networking with Nationwide? Like,
I was trying to see. It all comes down to money, and I was like, what? Let me just see what gives me the better deal. And honestly speaking, from what I was looking at, from Texas Pride to Lone Star, they're about the same price. They really weren't a huge difference, but you know, what really made me say, okay, I'm gonna go Lone Star was honestly just the dumpsters. The dumpsters I felt like were just more durable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and now looking back at it, you know, I kind of wish I would have went standard route, whether that be through Texas Pride or through an actual, like, different manufacturer, right? But, again, I didn't really do a whole lot of research. I was more of like, okay, let's go see who sells them and let's go look at them. And that's where I got.
And find something within our budget that we had at that point.
So that's how I started. I also went and bought a 2019 Ram 2500. My old truck was a 09 Ram 2500, which is it has now. Anyway, that was diesel, and so I always knew what the power of the diesel felt like and everything. But I do know that diesel trucks, when it comes to maintenance, can be expensive. So I was like, you know what? Same thing. So I had his truck, or at least my old truck. I had my old truck, the house, a new truck payment, the trailer payment, and obviously I wanted to make sure that I kind of minimized everything. And at that time, the diesel market was crazy, so I went gas. Okay, now I'm not knocking on the gas. They're good trucks. They're great, 8-speed, right? I had no problems with it at all. I probably put 50,000 miles on it in a year, maybe a year and a half. No problems, never overheated, nothing. I never had to change anything out besides, you know, regular maintenance. But that's, you know, morally speaking, that's what I started with. I started with a 2019 Ram 2500 and the Lone Star trailer with 3 bins. That ran me about, I don't know, I want to say maybe around 35 to 40K with all the add-ons, the electric tarp, the extra stuff that they sell you with, and then the truck, which was, I believe, about, at that time, I bought it for about like 58,000 after taxes, you know, almost maybe 60,000.
I think it probably not more, because I mean, it was
crazy time, bro.
Yeah,
it was crazy
although
time
it was a
trucks.
gasser, you know, you did have a pretty high trim.
No, it was high.
6.4, you know?
Yeah, it was a high trim, super nice. I missed the way it looked, but you know, obviously,
you didn't have the Power Wagon package, right? It was just
it was Laramie black, interior, powered door steps. I'm not gonna go into it all, but yeah. So in all, my business, I was put out about $100,000. That was just the truck, trailer, dumpsters. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it with website, advertisement, all of that. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that's what I started with. So
that's good. Well, let's go on to this then. What were some of the struggles that you had now that, you know, they know kind of what you started with after you found out, you know, going back to what you mentioned about Lone Star and stuff? What were some struggles that you had, you know, with the equipment, let's say, that leading up to present day maybe?
Right. So a couple of struggles. I've had a lot, obviously, within the industry and doing a lot of rentals a month. And for the past 2.5 years, I've had a few instances where on the scissor lift, I'll start off with the scissor lift. So with the Lone Star trailer, it's a scissor lift hoist. Don't get me wrong, they're good and all, but the way that they bind and they scissor, I guess, and close up, it puts a weak spot in the actual lift mechanism. So if you have a dumpster that's front loaded, where it's heavier in the front, that scissor lift does not want to pick up. It'll basically, the bottom of the dumpster where, you know, the trailer and the dumpster meet, when it goes to push it up, because it's pushing up in the center of the dumpster, it'll kind of go like this, right? It'll kind of just flex in the middle and it won't go up. However, now that time has went on, we've did some modifications to it and everything, we have raised the bottom of the whole system up about 5 inches. So now it's that little flat point. So now it's kind of already preset to where it's already, you know, it has like a head start.
Yeah, so it doesn't drop all the way down. It drops to that preset
exactly,
point.
Exactly. Now, no kidding, I could fill up a whole 14, 15-yard dumpster full of dirt. I've done it. I've had pictures and everything. And I can dump it. You know, I'm not advising that. Don't do that.
Don't. Hey,
I did that.
Because what we had to do before, what we went through before we could be able to do that was...
Yes. So that's one problem, is obviously the scissor hoist. I wish it was a regular cylinder hoist. AE, Texas Pride, and those other manufacturers. Or telescopic, right? Those are good.
Ooh.
So that's one of the issues that I had with the Lone Star. Another thing too, and I might pop up a video what happened recently, but my axles broke on that, which obviously I can't say it's a Lone Star issue. It's obviously probably like the axle issue or the manufacturer issue. But that was one thing, so I might pop up in a video a little clip of what happened and how we, you know, whatever. Anyway. So there's that, and then we're going to talk about the actual rail system itself. The rail system it's and there's no really room for error. Like, you literally have to be lined up straight. Now, you can obviously put the truck in neutral or reverse, and as you're trying to go up, you can turn the wheel and try to get the trailer to kind of move with it, right? But, and I don't know if that's how it is with standard rails, no idea, 'cause I never used them, but that's one thing that I've noticed. And the rails that are on that channel itself, they're maybe, I don't know, that wide or so, but
four about.
they're like half the size of the wheel, which
Yeah.
makes no sense. So there's times where you try to back it up and you're not completely straight. You're gonna have one wheel that's not even on one rail, and the other one's like completely on the rail.
And you'll get to a point to where you hit something and the dumpster just stops.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll pop a line or
So, yeah, or it wants to shift or whatever. You know, it's so that's one struggle. I mean, there's a lot more struggles into it, but my biggest harp on the Lone Stars would be the rail system itself.
Can't load at an angle.
Can't load on an angle, obviously. Well, obviously, a lot of times the dumpster has to be flat because it'll want to shift. But
No, and by angle I mean like I don't mean like at a flat angle and stuff. I mean when you're backing up the trailer. Let's say your trailer is sitting at a 90 degree, and you have to line up like that. If you're trying to load up your dumpster on that 90-degree trailer, but your dumpster's at another 45 from that trailer, it's not happening.
Yeah, it's got to be completely straight.
It's got. We're talking about you have to be
completely straight.
lined up.
Yeah. So the rail system, I don't like. It is what it is. It works, right? I'm just picking on it, but the rail system has its faults. The lift system has its faults, and obviously the batteries was a whole other thing. They die, but obviously I've ran a 0 gauge positive and negative from my truck batteries under the frame to the bed with the Anderson Quick Connect, and I have those jumped to my trailer batteries, so they never die now. But that's the things I guess you could say were the struggles with it. What about you?
What about me? Let's take a pause real quick and check the video. We can cut this just to make sure. Okay, yeah, we're still good. Just want to make sure, bro.
So yeah. Oh wait, hold on. So those were my struggles on obviously my trailer and my setup. What about your struggles?
So, I think starting from the beginning, my struggles were belts and not having the right equipment for the right job. And yes, I would have essentially, I guess you can say, the right type of equipment, the right tool, not the correct power, maybe not a commercial and stuff like that. So there's a saying that we have in Spanish that goes, "El que if you buy cheap, you're gonna buy every single day or 2 days, whatever the case is, right?" So that was what happened with me. I stayed to the cheaper residential versions of the Echoes because they were lighter, easier on me, easier on my dad, stuff like that. And then they going out, they kept breaking. Same thing with the mowers. Initially I stayed with the walk behinds, but I would stick with like a World Lawn or like a Cub Cadet, stuff that you can find at a typical Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Home Depot and stuff like that. Well, then slowly again with Mr. Don that I had got in contact with here in Dallas, he said, "Hey man, well, why don't you go commercial, and stuff like that." Which, jumping forward to when I got my first stander, that's what changed everything for me. I got my first stander, and I mean that I learned a lot of different things with the standers and with any mower in general, whether they have floating decks.
Quick, you're saying standard or
no stander?
Stander?
Yeah, stander, like right stander.
Okay.
Stand like, and then ER.
Oh, okay, so like a stand-on.
Yeah, like a stand-on mower.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The right stander. Yeah. Now,
just wanted to,
yeah, when you talk about decks, there is that difference versus a standard deck, fixed deck, or a floating deck. You know what I mean? There's a lot of decks that you see in Home Depot or Lowe's and stuff like that, where they're like the welded decks, where they're just kind of bent out and stuff like that. Those are kind of like the standard size deck or whatever. Right. They're not necessarily standard size. They're all different, various amount of sizes, right? But I guess standard manufacturer and stuff like that. Right. You have the floating deck and you have the fixed decks, and stuff. So the first mower that I had a fixed deck. What I mean by that is the deck. The only way the deck would go up and down is if you move the washers at the front caster wheels that were in the front. So I had to literally climb up. Once you drop the gate down, half the mower goes up to where one wheel was hanging off the side of the mower. You remove that pin, drop the caster wheel, and then depending on how high you wanted it, you had to move those washers either to the bottom or the top.
What the heck?
And that would raise and lower your deck. Well, the floating decks, which are the Skags, the new ones that I have, they have the lever. So
leverage, yeah.
You look at your size, 3.5, 3.75, whatever it is. move your pin, lift your deck, drop
Drop
it,
and it's
whatever you
good.
want.
Set.
Exactly.
Right.
So they're basically set to the same height. I can cut up to, I think, well, not at the same height. I can cut as high as 6 inches, I believe 5 to 6 inches on the Skag. My right only goes up to about 4.5. That's cutting at the highest height.
4.5? That's insane.
And I can drop it all the way down to, I'm talking about like 1 inch, 2 inches. Both the right standard also have a washer that goes underneath the blade. And that blade can be changed to a thicker washer, thinner washer, or I would say, right? The right is one that has actual washers. So you can add washers to the blades, or you can remove washers on the blades. So with the fixed deck standards, that I was having a hard time, because once you move the washers that are on the bottom blade, your washers that you have in the caster wheel no longer make, compensate. Exactly, because now your blade is sitting higher up in your deck. And so that was a huge learning curve with me with that. Then I got a zero turn, then I started getting the floating decks, stuff like that. Obviously makes life way, way easier. Nevertheless, too, floating decks, some of them you can increment them by 0.25 or a quarter of an inch, essentially. And so you have all the way from, I think, 1.5 inches to, 5 inches at being at as high as the deck can go, and they're all by quarters. So it was good. Jumping to the Skags, the only thing I would say about those that I had started to get troubles with was the weight. You'd be surprised what a 600-pound mower with a 300-pound guy or 150-plus pound guy is. It is crazy. And everybody's 300 pounds. Myself, I'm around 200 pounds. But at the same time, being me, 200 pounds sitting on a Skag that's already 800 pounds, you're talking about 1,000 pounds of pressure walking on 2 really thin tires going onto the lawn. And that's a lot of things that, to this present day I struggle with. A lot of the new mowers that are coming out, it's a specific size tire, and they're always sold out everywhere. You can find them online here and there and stuff, and, there are certain websites that we can get them from now. Online where, from actual tire shops that are starting to produce that tire. Why? Because a lot of the mowers are switching to that. The only thing that I have to complain about that is if you run over the same exact stripes on, for a month on end, like you go through the exact same trail on a customer's lawn, you'll start seeing the height difference because the tires start pushing that down. Then that's where complaints start coming through and everything. Nevertheless, too, working on, the weed eaters and stuff, the smaller weed eaters, they run out of power way faster. And going from Echo to Steel to Red Max, there's a lot of different options out there. The X series and the Echo, the moment those came out, man, they changed everything. That 2620T, it's insane. A lot of the people, they'll know what I'm talking about. I know I talk into numbers and stuff, and it's like, dang, bro, what is it? But you can look it up. The Echoes, a lot of the commercial head weed eaters, they have more torque nowadays, and you can get that option, which is the T at the number, right? So you get that, and the way it rips through those edges, it does everything you need it to. Sometimes, we don't even need a metal edger. We don't even need a metal blade. We go out there with that weed eater and it'll rip off edges that are 5-6 inches. Never, if it's dirt, then you're not gonna do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, then moving on with trucks, there's a lot of, it's if you have very good route density, you will do good with, even if it's a cheaper truck or whatever it is, right? But whenever you start running the diesels, like the one I bought from you start running bigger things and you're traveling to these properties, man, your gas expenses go up. And if something happens, it's crazy. And if you're driving trailers too, training to drive a trailer.
How to back it up.
Exactly. Not everybody knows how to drive with a trailer. Luckily I learned that on the ranch where I lived on, and stuff. So I was able to, go in now, maneuver with my little trailer, carry all my equipment in that one setup and stuff. So I think looking back at it now, what one scenario that you can remember, like kind of what I just mentioned, a few scenarios, you can say, hey, like this is
So I would say, to make it real short just to make it real short and sweet, I have one scenario, which obviously what I was talking about earlier with the broken axles. Being that obviously it's a trailer setup, it's not obviously the greatest, but it's good to start off with a trailer setup. And what happened was I picked up a container. It was a 20-yard dumpster full of squished, I'm talking about like 50 or 55 gallon barrels, whatever those are, 50 for 55, I don't know. They were somewhere. They're metal barrels, and they were squished to about like that big. I don't know how they squished them. Maybe with a press or something. Anyway, they loaded those things up in the dumpster. I'm talking about they stacked them so nicely and neatly. The problem was some of those barrels had rained like for a couple days before that. So some of those barrels had liquid or water in it, and it made it really heavy. And as I was leaving my customer's property, I'm talking about driving straight out of their property, turning right, I just hear boom. And like I felt like a jerk, right? And I'm like, what the heck was that? And I look in my mirror and I can just see my tire just rolling down the street and it goes in a ditch. And so I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So after that, I pick up my tire, obviously, put it in the bed of my truck, and I'm like, dude, I just need to try to make it home. And so thankfully where I was at, I was only like a mile or two away from my house, and I was able to get my excavator, get the truck, and was in my truck as I was driving the excavator, picking it up with a chain and all that, and get it back to my house. So
that was crazy though. You have to put that clip because we were driving 3 miles an hour,
literally
with
3 miles an hour.
with the chain on picking up the trailer because the trailer only had tires on one side.
That's kind of where I almost forgot to mention that. So one tire broke off, okay, and I was like, let me try to wing it home. I went to the next street and tried to make a left to go back towards my house, and boom, second one breaks. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm not going nowhere now. Yeah. So I'm in the middle of the street right before the crossing of railroad tracks, and Beasley Fire, the whole nine, everybody shows up. I'm like scared. And finally a tow truck guy that's in our area comes up. He has an 18-wheeler tow truck, and he just picks up the back of my trailer, and the fire guy that are like, as long as you're off the road, I don't care where you're doing, where you're at, whatever. So thankfully, shout out to those guys too. They got me off the road, and then that's when Andy came by with his dump trailer. We loaded everything up, and then yes, I'll pop that video up somewhere where me and him were driving the trailer back home. So that was probably the worst scenario I've had.
That took us, I think to drive about a mile. We'd have to measure it. Probably like a mile and a half, 2 miles, maybe 2 miles, just because of the route we took.
Yeah.
But to do that,
to do like 45 minutes to an hour, it was ridiculous.
It was about 45 minutes because I got to where you were first, make sure everything was okay. What's gonna be the plan? Are we going was I gonna go get the excavator with him, or did I have to load it alone? What was the case?
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. And so we got there, fire department was there, everything. And he was like, no, well, let's go get it. We went, picked up the excavator, came back, transferred everything. After we realized it was going to take us hours to transfer everything with the excavator, the guys luckily came over there from the same property he was at. That
their helpers or the workers, whatever.
Sent some guys over, transferred everything within about 20 minutes, and then we're on the road. Well, that was the first 45-minute drive to get the trailer home. Once we got the trailer home, come get my dump trailer. Well, my dump trailer's full. So then I was going right behind them, basically with the excavator, and just trying to follow home until we got home. And that trip was a trip.
Yeah, it was not fun. But check it out on my TikTok. I made a TikTok. I think it might be on my Facebook too. But if you go to my TikTok, Humpty Dumpsters LLC, you'll see the video that I made showing the whole situation.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That I wouldn't say that's a trailer problem, but obviously it kind of is because trailers are very. At least they have bigger ones and all that. But my setup with my trailer, what it's rated for, that was my situation or biggest struggle, I guess you could say.
And a little before that, we had been running that trailer
nonstop, stupid heavy loads.
We're talking almost video.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, almost. But never been overweight.
Yeah,
but we've had some heavy loads on.
Wink, wink. But yeah, no. But at the end of the day, going to that trailer part. I don't even think more if it's like the kind of trailer that you get, because obviously it has to do with, hey, yes, I'm gonna get a trailer that can withstand X amount of weight. Mm-hmm. At the same time, who's your dealer networking with for the axles? Not a lot of trailer manufacturers themselves make axles, right? Those are
for somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's what we learned though.
Yeah.
On my trailer, and I think that's what I'm saying. From my experience, I had a bad experience with my trailer because the axles that I had, it was hard for me to even look them up, to buy them, to see who manufactures them, who makes them and all that. Come to find out, it's a small dealer or manufacturer in Mexico that they only sell in Mexico. I have no idea. But I don't
know. Imported, I guess.
I don't know.
But I guess, following that, having the knowledge that you have now and going back, let's say a few, 2 years, 3 years, whenever you started or thinking about it and having this knowledge, what would you do if you had to go get another setup?
If I could, and you know, if I would have, I probably could have.
And let's not say if you go and you get a loan or you would do that. No, no, no. We're starting from scratch, having the knowledge you have now. Let's say you max had maybe $1,000 in your bank account. But again, considering you were able to get stuff on credit, you know, again, let's use that scenario and stuff. Not saying you can go get a huge, you know, SBA loan for $1 million and stuff, right? But let's say you might, you know, go run your stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, me personally, in my situation with my finances and everything, if I was able to go back, I would have went strictly to a truck system. And the reason why I say that is because you can find, I mean, I found plenty of nice used trucks for 50, 60K, hook lifts, you know, or just regular cable pulls, and go that route. Now, obviously, that truck, that hook lift or whatever, would have been my personal truck everywhere. So I'd been driving that to families' houses. Probably not, but
to an extent, though.
To an extent, though, like if I had to, that would have been my personal truck. And you know, if like now seeing where my business is at now, I wish I would have went that route. And then maybe as time went on, maybe I would have been able to save up for
a
personal vehicle, be a car, a truck, you know, whatever the case may be. But for what I was in debt with, you know, let's say everything in total with marketing, branding, websites, insurance, the whole nine, let's say 130,000 maybe.
See, and that's through multiple different loans, credit cards, XYZ, just to get to that.
Exactly. If let's just say I had, you know, $130,000 like I did. Now I didn't obviously have that in cash, right? But you know what I mean.
In cash, yeah.
You know, available, right? I personally would have went hook lift truck. Hook lift truck, either, you know, at that time I wouldn't have known the difference between the hooks at that time if I didn't do my research very good, but I probably would have went 36 or 54-inch hook, under CDL obviously, and I would have ran that. That's probably what I would have went back to.
That's interesting.
And I would have said screw the black nice Ram 2500 and everything else, and just go that route.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, a lot of people, it's a sacrifice you have to make. Like he said, he wouldn't have a personal truck. You know, maybe that could be for a year, 2 years. You truly don't know how long it's going to take. And that doesn't, with that being said, it also, you know, has to portray of how much of a hustler, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you going to keep the truck and, you know, keep that security of your part-time job and only run part-time, or for real make the full-time job, you know, jump into that, you know, your next job, your next career being your business, and are you going to live? You know, are you going to be able to survive for 30 days, 40 days, you know, 60 days, 90 days if you're barely getting known in the city and stuff like that, which was
the hard part. Yeah, exactly. That's the hard part. You know, that's why I had this side, that's why I had the steady income with, you know, being a side hustle, was so I can for sure at least make some kind of money, because I had a house payment, now a truck payment, now a payment for the trailer and the dumpsters.
So let me ask you this.
Insurance and all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Business insurance.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is crazy. Let me ask you this then. Having the knowledge you have now, once again, would you go at it making it a side hustle? Like, let's say you wanted to start a new business today. Would you automatically jump in it as a side hustle and start that off to have something? Or would you say, hey, you know what? Now that I know what I'm doing and creating a business, let me just full-fledged give it my all. Or put another example. What if Humpty Dumpsters is doing really good? What if Humpty is doing, like, let's put you in a scenario where it's doing really good. What do you think you would do? You think you would make a small side hustle here and there? Or would you full-fledged, like...
If in a scenario like that, I probably went full-fledged, honestly. Like, you know, and there's things that I'm like, dang, I wish I would have went full-time sooner. There's things where I'm like, well, I'm glad this worked out this way, you know. But it really depends, I guess, on at that time where was I at in my life. Yeah. If I didn't have a house... Yeah. Right, then maybe I would have went full time, because I didn't have very much responsibilities. But being that I had the responsibilities already, and I had the house, and I had all these other things, like I had to have some kind of steady income. And at that time, trying to be the cheapest man on the block to get your dumpsters out there, you're not profiting a lot. I mean, I know there was a time where he was helping me out while I was at work. He was running my dumpsters. I was set to pay him, obviously, to go do the dumpster rental, do the drop off, do the pickup, do the whole nine, pay the gas. And I was only making $50, maybe $100 if I was super, super, super lucky. Maybe. I mean, at that time, it was like, well, if we do... At that time, we were doing very, like, volume. We were doing 4 or 5 dumpsters a day. Yeah. So, I mean, that was nice. But today, I'm like, 4 or 5 dumpsters at what I'm charging now and how I'm charging, you know, I would have been making a killing, you know. But that's obviously going into, like, living and learning. You know, now I know Now I know my rates, and he always tells me this every time. Like, it's crazy that you say about this stuff now, because if you would ask me that years ago, I would have been like, no, I'm gonna try to take care of everybody, and I still do, but to an extent. Like, if it's not worth it at all, I'm not doing it.
You learned how to say no.
Exactly. Basically, I learned how to say no. Because at the time, I was like, no, help him, help him, help him, help him. And then there's times where obviously I get burnt. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. But you just live and learn. So, but yeah, enough of me. Obviously. What about you? I mean, how did you have any one of those crazy scenarios, or, you know, do you want to talk about if you were able to go back? Like, how would you, I guess, move forward or start? I mean, it's kind of different for you because like you went.
Yeah,
straight. I mean, you went full time. So
I didn't take another option. I went full time. So a lot of the struggles that I had was learning how to manage the money. It's probably where I'm at today and the debt that I have, because the way I was looking at it was reinvest every single dime. And when I mean reinvest every single dime, I mean that's why I think I have what I have now, because I mean I probably have $100,000 plus in worth of equipment, you know what I'm saying? And that was my problem, you know. Now, don't get me, no, I did not pay that cash. No, I had a lot of help and networking and stuff, dude. Like, I mean, we're talking about struggles to get approved, struggles to do all this stuff, you know, for loans, and nevertheless, getting them at stupid interest rates. You know, we're talking about you're paying more in interest than you're actually paying for your piece of equipment. And so that was my like biggest thing that I didn't realize until maybe a year or two ago, that I would honestly say beginning of 2023 was when I realized, like, hey, I'm making money, but there needs change happening within the business. And again, going at it full-fledged, growing, you know, to where I did in 2021 when I incorporated and stuff, and I took a huge turn because at that point I had a lot of employees.
Yeah, you did.
And there was a point in time where I had maybe 9-10 employees, and now that I have 2 employees and the other rest are subcontractors, I realize I'm making the same. And maybe I'm not making, you know, a little bit less than the same because, again, they're contractors, right? But there's no stress that goes
There's
with
no liability on it. You're not worried about their trucks, their equipment, their belts, their strings, I mean, their gas.
When I had employees, that was a turning point for me, because everything came breaking, you know, nobody was taking care of the equipment, and a lot of that stuff too, we'll get into it, you know, here further on, and that has to do with being a leader and you know, knowing how to talk to your guys and knowing the kind of people that you hire too. Me being young and naive, I was honestly hiring anybody that came through, you know, and stuff, that anybody that would look like they had the hustle, and I would give them an option, you know, or not an option, I would give them an opportunity, I should say, yeah.
Right.
And so that was, I think, a big me having the knowledge that I have now, and going to start, you know, again. Man, there's so many options. I think I'd for sure go into it again full-fledged, because this is something that I know you can grow based off of straight hustle. And by that, I mean the more doors you knock, the more opportunities you'll potentially find.
So would you say, not to cut you off, but would you say, like, going into it and buying the equipment again, would you have started off with the push mower? Like, hypothetically speaking, let's say, you know, you have that credit available, right? Let's just say for the person that has, like, good credit, right? Like, we're talking, hypothetically speaking, right? The person who's watching this either has, because obviously they're probably looking into getting an industry or something like that. So let's say they have, you know, decent credit where they can get, let's say, maybe a loan for $5,000 to $10,000. Like, what would you had that kind of money? $5,000 to $10,000. What would you think? What would you do?
If you have the opportunity to get a loan and get it cash to where you have that cash money, I would hit up Facebook Marketplace. And I know this is crazy. But Marketplace.
This guy lives on Marketplace.
And the reason why I say that is because, look, you can find really nice equipment for very, very cheap, because other companies are trying to get rid of it. Bigger companies that have tax write-offs, that have the equipment to get rid of, you can survive off of them. Yeah, one man's trash is another man's treasure. If you're starting off from scratch, if you have the ability to get maybe a $15,000, $16,000, $20,000 loan, by all means, go finance your mower, because there is nothing better than a brand new mower than something that you get off of Facebook Marketplace and it's used. If you have the cash in hand and you say, hey, I would like to start a business off with $5,000 and all I have is a little Toyota Tacoma or a Ford Ranger, F-150, Chevy, whatever whatever tickles your pickle, you know what I mean? Whatever tickles your pickle, right? But at the end of the day, if you had that, that's what I would do. Try to start on a smaller walk behind. You know, now they have the 30 inches available.
But any specific brands? I mean, I'm sure they want to know, like, would you rather go with Echo, Steel, Craftsman?
I think I'll do this. Go with what fits with your budget. it doesn't matter what brand you have starting off. A more
Or maybe
matters.
budget and maybe their needs as far
That's
as like
what I
their
would-
clientele.
exactly.
If they do a
Well-
bunch of small houses, then they're gonna need something that's smaller
I mean,
to
yeah,
fit
but
through the door. If they're doing
at that
acreage,
point,
you know.
yeah, at that getting like that's a little more general speaking. You know, choosing before you get to the point of buying mowers and figuring out your budget, figure
Right.
out what you want to do. You know, do you want to stay residential or do you want to go commercial all in?
Mhm,
You know, nobody's telling you, hey, go out there and get a $15,000, $16,000, $20,000 turn if it's not going to make you money. No,
True.
I'd rather start off small. If I had to go back, like I said, and start off a day one from scratch, even if I had $1,000 in my bank account, right now, immediately what I would do is I would go to an equipment store, right? Maybe I would try to find a either lease to own option. Although your interest rate is going to be high, don't worry, you're going to make up that money, because if you have the hustle, the more doors you knock on, the more opportunities come to you. I would go and I would try to get everything financed and give that $1,000 down, and that being one push mower, one handheld blower, and one weed eater. Next thing I would do immediately is I would open up all the free pages. I would open up the page on Facebook company and Instagram page, do the Google listing, do all that.
The social media things.
All that, open that up, is completely free. You don't have to pay absolutely anything. Next, Microsoft has a huge plethora. Nevertheless, too, nowadays you have Canva, you can create. To an extent, some of those allow you to create for 7 days. You have a 7-day trial and create whatever you want for free. That way you can look at the app, XYZ. Create yourself a door hanger with your name, and something. And
all those templates they have, yeah, you're right.
I would as far as creating a template and sticking to strictly maintenance. Don't do any bush trimming, don't do any shrubs, don't do anything yet. Remember, all you're getting is a push mower or a walk behind. Doesn't matter what it is. I would stick to either a belt driven or a 30-inch walk behind. If you get a belt driven walk behind, there, you're going to get something for under $5,000, but it's going to be 32 inches, a commercial size mower, right? Or like, not mower, a motor head essentially. And you have a good mower. Nevertheless, stick to maintenance. Why? Because the maintenance is what's going to bring you the shrub trims. Those customers that you're cutting the lawn for, they probably have some shrubs, or even if it's a desert landscape, they're going to have some weeds.
Some kind of...
That comes after. Get as many people as you can to cut their lawn, right? Cut as many people's lawn as you potentially can. Why? Because they're eventually going to tell you, hey, do you do this? Hey, do you do that? That comes after. The more people you have on your schedule, the way better.
neighbor.
That's what I would do. Get word of mouth and just get a name out there. Eventually, yes, then the shirts come through, the vinyl, the hats, all that comes after. But as long as you're out there doing a very good job, you can get away with a simple push mower, a weed eater, and a regular blower, a handheld blower. It doesn't even have to be a backpack blower. I'm talking about the Echo blowers here, in the state of Texas are like $150, $180. I don't know any other states. I'm pretty sure prices vary by state, but they're about $180. The weed eater here, probably the simplest weed eater, you can probably get it for $280, $300. The most simple one. Same thing, a push mower, you can probably the Honda push mowers now on Marketplace, the commercial ones, you can find it for $300-$400 in the box, brand spanking new on Marketplace. Now, yes, who knows where those people got it from? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? You're using that to make money, and if you get a commercial mower for a very cheap price, brand new in the box from Marketplace, versus going to pay $800 at a store, I mean, come on, you can't beat that. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
And so, yes, I know it sounds very cheesy for me to say that XYZ, that's not really businessy, but at the end of the day, if I'm catering to the person that is starting their business from scratch, dude, you have the hustle. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a person more motivated than a person starting a business.
Yeah, for sure.
I know it for sure. I'm at the part where I was when I was 18.
I mean,
starting the business.
Same. I mean, when I first started, even though I had the actual main income, I was still doing yard signs. I was still putting out my banners. I was still
Traditional marketing. Everybody Everybody now is like, oh, you need to do digital marketing.
You need to pay for Google Ads and do this and do that.
Look, at the end of the day, it's all about analytics. And the more doors you knock on, the more people you present yourself from, you're good. I can sit here and tell you, every 250 door hangers will get you one call. It depends on your door hanger. Is it a good door hanger? Is it something that a client sees and they attracts their attention? Or is it something that the moment they get to the door, they see it and they grab it and throw it in the, just pull it off their door and yank it, let the wind take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much stuff that goes behind it of the actual hustle that you have to get that. But having what I have now, yes, I would still go off, simple. If I have barely money starting off where I was with my knowledge, push mower, weed eater, small little handheld blower, and strictly stick to lawn care. Don't try to do anything else, because again, that will follow. I didn't know that when I was starting off. I didn't know that I was going to get that next job, right? So I'm out here trying to find that next job, trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Again, trust your instinct. If you're doing a good job on the lawn, they will ask you to do many more options. Nevertheless, too, um, let's say again a scenario where I am able to finance everything and I am able to do, I have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
No trailer.
No trailer.
I would never go back to a trailer. I'm telling you, Ramp Rack, the ramprack.com. If you guys haven't heard of them, you don't know who they are. Look at that.
Yeah.
I was able to put my hands on 3 of them, and I'm never going back to a trailer. It is amazing. You have the trailer set up in the back of your truck. Whether you have a 1500, you might have to do upgraded like leaf springs or bags, the suspension, right? Because again, you're putting all that weight of the mower and stuff in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody you hire can drive a car, more than likely, can drive a truck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You look at Amazon, they have
Truck
so many.
and trailer is totally different.
Exactly. They have so many people driving those dry vans. A dry van is way bigger than the ramp rack and truck setup will actually ever be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where I would go. I would be able to start my business with $15,000, only $15,000, and that right there would buy me the ramp rack, very cheap wore down truck, right? But let's say I had it, something that I could find again, for cheap.
You definitely can. Yeah, you can find something.
Yeah,
for sure.
something for cheap. Maybe it needs just a small thing. Again, I'm not talking about you're going to be driving 80 miles to go do a lawn, 40 miles, not even 20 miles to go do a lawn. If you don't have a 5-mile radius for that one old raggedy truck, you're not going to make it. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, don't get too some raggedy. Let's say again, I have my own truck. I have my personal truck. The 15,000 would go towards the ramp rack, my marketing, my mowers, and all my equipment. And stuff like that. I mean, the mower itself nowadays is going to cost you $9-10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So nevertheless, all of the other $5K, you're barely able to get, whatever else equipment, right? So I think I would start off like that for sure. If I had a truck already and I was able to have $15K to go ahead and start the ramp rack, basic commercial equipment, and knock on doors, man. Knock on doors and go forward.
That's the way to do it. I mean, I wouldn't say that's the only way to do it, but
yeah, of course, but he started one way, I started completely. You guys can literally see, he had a job. I went straight at it right out of high school, so again, that's something that within our podcast we're going to be able to show you guys of 2 different points of view, literally 100% of the time. But with that being said, we're still coming together and growing the businesses, at the same time. The way he grows his business is almost the same way I'm, trying to going to grow, and stuff like that. And same thing, I may have some stuff that may work for me, and I'm like, hey, bro, try it. Just put your own, theme to it, right? Again, with Humpty Dumpsters and stuff. So yeah, I think that was a good broad spectrum of exactly what we got going on, what we had going on, what is how we got to this position and stuff. So we hope you guys enjoy the episode, and we hope you guys kind of now get a better idea of who he is, who I am, and how we got to this point. What do you think?
Yeah, no, well said. Again, thank you guys for tuning in and watching the video. We do have a couple of guest speakers coming up, so if you guys want to check that out, make sure you guys like, subscribe, stay tuned with us. It's I think it's going to be a really good episode. I mean, they're pretty well known, at least in my industry, obviously, so it'll be catered more to my industry. But for those out there who want to start in the waste management, industry, definitely want to check out that video. So that'll be coming up hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks. We don't know exactly how long right now because we do have a couple of stuff planned here within the next few weeks. We're going to be very, very busy. But we will have those episodes coming up. So, in case anybody does, like you mentioned, want to start in the waste industry, feel free to tune in. It's going to be wonderful episodes. The people are based out of here in Houston area and stuff. So we'll leave it at that. That way we can kind of give you guys some suspense,
Yeah.
Further in the future, too, I do want to bring in, somebody from the green industry or, and stuff. So that way we can have a good perspective sides, but nevertheless, we hope you guys enjoy and see what we can do.
Sweet. Well, again, guys, thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment, send us a message, to us, DM us, whatever the case may be. But
we now have the social medias open, so you guys can follow us on Instagram at Dirty Knowledge Podcast all together. Same thing with Facebook at Dirty Knowledge Podcast. So if you guys look at us, look for our logo. It's going to be there. Again, they're just opened up, so we don't have anything too much posted. But after this episode, we should have a few clips here and there that we could be able to post.
Right.
So
well, I think that was great.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Take care.